Welcome to the Disrupt Your Career podcast, brought to you by Claire Harbour
and Antoine Tirard. We're passionate about helping everyone find fulfillment in their work life.
We believe that big, messy, uncharted career changes are inevitable, and it's up to you to decide.
Will you take control and disrupt, or allow yourself to be disrupted?
We wrote the book about it, and now we share here our conversations with other thinkers in this crucial area.
Settle down and get ready to listen to this dose of wisdom.
So on this episode of the Disrupt Your Career podcast, I'm delighted to be welcoming Neil Courtis. He's a global e-learning specialist with an illustrious career behind him, as well as in front of him, who happens to tell particularly good stories about careers and business schools. Neil, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Claire.
Let's start, as we always do, with your career journey. You've been through several quite substantial pivots and challenges in your long career, starting in commercial and political research before moving towards journalism and publishing. And inspired by your INSEAD MBA, you've built a company that produces e-learning and insights into the world of careers and business education. You work with thought leaders and experts from all over the world, including some of our favorite guests, so our worlds collide rather beautifully. Can you share with us how this career unfolded and talk about to what extent it's a result of design or serendipity? And just to keep you talking, I'd love to know more about your key moments of pride and the challenging moments.
It certainly wasn't the result of design, and I don't know if it was serendipity either. I found a difficult time in my career to find something that I really wanted to do. Maybe that's common among career changes. I was terribly bad. I was a researcher for for two MPs who went on to become cabinet ministers in the Labour government of the 1990s. And I didn't understand that at all. I was in large part not very good at it. Well, I studied economics. I became a journalist. I was better at that, but I was still, frankly, I'm sure, a very annoying employee because for various reasons, insubordination among them. The thing I would highlight is I did discover along the way things I was good at. And eventually I sort of constructed if you found your own company, you make the kind of company you want to work for. So I found something that was a good match for the things I'm good at. And in terms of pride, if you do content, which is what I've done really my whole career, well, certainly for me, I'm proud of some of the things that I've done. You know, they're things. It's a particular webinar. It's a particular online course. I don't make books. I did used to edit books, but I don't do books anymore. But it's to be able to point. I like, if you've done something really well, and in particular, I'm slightly obsessed with feedback. So I really get excited if we do something and we get great feedback and we feel like we've helped people. That's very satisfying.
I seem to remember that Antoine and I did a webinar with you once that got some rather good feedback.
I think you did.
Thanks to your very brilliant curating of what we were trying to share with people. So that's nice that we've got some shared moments of pride too. That's lovely. Neil, you've worked with all kinds of different leaders, both as an employee in the earlier part of your career and in terms of partnerships, collaborations, and whatever. A large range of types of people and types of organization. What would you say are the standout lessons you've learned from such leaders and across that big range?
It's very different. So what I love, the thing that is most exciting to me is I'm usually on the other side of the microphone, of course, Claire. So I love being able to interview people, and I've always loved that. So I've learned the standout things for me are, you know, if you're interested in something and I'm interested in careers and how they work, it is an incredible privilege to be able to sit with people and talk about their ideas and really engage and try and understand them. So there's a bunch of those. That's a particular, so Herminia Ibarra, a massive,
The Queen.
The Queen. And that resonates. I was very stuck in my career, and her incredible insight that if you want to change career, You cannot sort of analyze. It's not a sort of analytical project where you sit down and work out some ideal fit and then you pursue that, whatever it is you've decided. That's just completely wrong. And people still say that. And it drives me mad. And she made this brilliant insight, which is that doesn't work. And the thing that does work is experimenting and acting and trying out different sort of working identities. So it's very exciting to me to be able to really dig into an idea like that, which is a very powerful idea. As I said, it drives me mad still. So many people keep repeating this wrong idea that you can somehow plan these things and that you sit down with a piece of paper and you introspect your way to a new life, and it's completely wrong. And it drives me mad.
It drives me mad too. And I have clients who show up with spreadsheets, which are the result of their analysis. Of course, we need to explore, no doubt of that. But if you don't experiment as well, then you're missing the point.
The danger is, as you know, probably more than me, you get stuck in this dead end of introspection and you're not sort of almost anything, any activity in the real world, particularly networking. When you say experimentation, people think they've got to, well, you're in Nairobi. That's a kind of radical experiment, but you don't have to do something that radical to learn a massive amount about what might suit you.
Indeed.
So we talked about Hamidi Mubarak. The other person that I've learned an enormous amount from is Daniel Porro. You may remember.
Oh, yes.
From INSEAD, a wonderful career coach, one of the hardest working career trainers in Europe, maybe the world. He talks about this idea, which I haven't heard anyone else talk about, which is a relative skill. And the idea is that transferable skills, nobody believes in them, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed that. People don't actually believe it's true. They don't think it can really work, that you can take some skill in one area and apply it somewhere else really usefully. And everyone thinks, because people think, well, you need a lot of experience. That may or may not be true. But one thing that is true, which I've noticed in my own career, if you go from, as I was, journalism and publishing, you have these normal, for you, content skills. And then you move to a new area. And these things, which literally every single journalist in the world can do, you sort of roll out these rather modest skills and people go, wow, oh my, what the hell are you doing? That's so impressive. And the point is that it's a relative skill. It's a skill which is common where you were, but less common where you want to be. It's a very magical thing when you find something like that, because then that is the key to getting past. People always say, as I'm sure they say to you, how will I ever get hired in a new career? I'm competing against people who've been doing it for 10 years. And people just can't imagine how that could be true. So one of the keys is this brilliant idea of relative skills, that there'll be things that you do, which to you are very normal and possibly unexceptional in your area of work, which are miraculous, almost miraculous in some other area. And it's a key insight. And I think Daniel's the only person who I'm aware of who's made it.
I like it. And I must admit that I don't think that he talked about it at the time back when I did my MBA, but he's obviously added it. And he is a quite incredible human being, that's for sure. So in thinking about these relative skills, and one of the ways that you were able to bring, therefore, some magic into a next career, let's go back and have you tell us about your most challenging and disruptive transition in your career from one context to another. What would it be and what was it like?
I had this agonizing period working in financial journalism and not just strongly, passionately understanding that it wasn't where I was supposed to be. And it was a ghastly, ghastly experience. It was hideous because, of course, you don't perform at a high level. I think people often overlook this or sort of glide over this. If you're not happy where you are, you're probably not doing a great job. And I was doing an okay job in some areas, but I wasn't doing a great job, and certainly not a great job in all areas. And I was probably not much fun as an employee. And I couldn't work out what to do next. And so going to business school for me was just this, it was the only thing I could think of. looking at all the possible paths in front of me, and I didn't want to do any of them. And I just couldn't understand how to escape from this trap. Meanwhile, grinding away, having to work super hard to force myself to do this thing, which I wasn't. That was a very agonizing experience. And it went on for some years. And I wish that I had done more experimentation, done any, the thing I didn't do as I didn't go out. We talked about networking. I should have been just talking to people and saying, what the hell am I going to do? And I didn't really do any of that because I was kind of ashamed that I didn't know. And so I just sort of struggled away, not being stuck and not knowing what to do.
So the moral of that story is really, when you're stuck, show some grit and then accept that moving is needed, action of some kind to experiment.
One of the reasons people get stuck is because they look at things they could do and they seem very radical and they don't necessarily want to do something perfectly reasonably. But talking to people,
of course,
saying is so important. And I didn't understand that at the time. And then the other thing is, this is an idea of Herminia Ibarra's, which I think she undersells. I think it's very clever. She talks about identity workspaces. And the idea is that there are some contexts in which it's much easier to think about different selves. And the classic one is back to school. Go back to school in some way. And then you're being in a classroom with other people who are trying to do something is just so powerful.
You could have gone and learned Spanish at night school.
I could have done anything, literally anything at all. Anything would have been exactly at night school. And that would have been just something out in the real world, trying something different, getting a flavor for it. I found when I was doing my MBA, it was incredibly interesting to me to look around at the people and say, okay, so I understand that I'm much worse at clearly these people who've been management consultants for 5 years, they're going to knock up a spreadsheet much faster than I am. But then in other cases, I thought, okay, so actually I do know how to do this because I can see that you don't and I do. And that was really interesting.
Absolutely. So get out and experiment for sure. Now, let's think about early career professionals, those who are looking to start out in this very strange world that we're living in 2025. Both from your personal learning and from all these wonderful experts with whom you frequent much of your time, what advice do you have for those who are in a very early stage of their careers?
You've really got to find a way of playing around and using AI. But I think the problem there is that the best way to use AI is if you already have strong opinions yourself about what represents a good or bad output. And I think it's possibly a trap for young people who put something into AI and get some answer and say, well, that's better than I could do. And then you don't struggle and learn yourself how to do something. So I think that's a possible risk. But then the thing I would say is, in the same way as we have identity workspaces, when you're young, I think you have a license to go and talk to people and say, can you help me? I would like to learn about this. Could I have a little bit of your time? It's a particular opportunity and it dissipates. It's just not true for you and I think, Claire. Controversial thing to say, but I think it is less true. But when you're young, you should just be doing that all the time. Reaching out to people and saying, look, in a very humble way, I would like to learn. Can you help me? Can you explain? Can you tell me, in a way, a conversation not dissimilar to what we're doing now. You should do as much of that as you can and just trying things, trying things. The door is open. There are times in your life when the door really is open. Anytime you're studying, I think the door is open. People are very well disposed towards students. They're well disposed towards kids, and you should make absolutely the most of that you can.
I think that's beautiful advice and very, very salient right now. Which means for those who are listening who are parents or grandparents, that means we need to be encouraging those young people to start that inquisitive approach as early on as they possibly can.
I've got a tip in this regard.
Yes?
I learned this from Daniel Porro. I'm now talking about work experiences and internships. I'm talking about a slightly bigger ask than just saying, can I come and have a chat to you? The reason why people don't say yes to young people is they think they're going to sit in the corner of the office like a complete lemon and just be annoying and require lots of sort of managing and helping and prodding. So the one way to alleviate that concern is to when you say to someone, I would like to do, could I come and work in your office for a week? Is to say to them, some of the tasks I could do are as follows. And then you give them 5 bullet points. And ChatGPT is incredibly good at working out what those bullet points should be. ChatGPT, people are totally, in my opinion, misunderstand what ChatGPT is good for. It's a great bullshitter. We all know that. But more importantly is it's read everything. And it's particularly good, by the way, because there's a lot of stuff about careers, it's read everything. So if you say, what does a typical XYZ person do? It knows.
Yeah.
And you can test this. Test it on your own job. Tell it things that you already know and test it. It's amazing. So if you say to ChatGPT, give me 10 tasks or projects I could do as an intern in this kind of company, ChatGPT will give you a brilliant list. And if you put 5 of those into an email and send it to someone, they suddenly think, wow, this person understands what's going on. They're not going to sit in the corner like a potato. Maybe I'll give them a shot. So there we go.
I love that. That will be useful. And it should be actually useful to anyone at any stage in their career thinking about what they might be able to offer in spontaneous candidature. That's for sure.
People love a menu and people don't do enough. I don't know why. It's kind of an effort, but it's less of an effort now.
I absolutely agree that networking is something that everybody should be thinking about, but often the word networking invokes all kinds of dreadful emotions in people. And so I do wonder if it should be eliminated from dictionaries and the general lexicon. But Neil, you were going to talk about a particular California academic that has a great take on networking.
Well, funnily enough, and one of the reasons it's so great, it doesn't use the word networking.
Yay.
Well, it suggests a strategy, which is completely a networking strategy, but it doesn't use the word networking. And the article is called How to Be a Leader in Your Field. And it's by Philip Ager, who was a computer science professor at the University of California. So you can Google it, How to Be a Leader in Your Field, Philip Ager, A-G-R-E. It is so clever because what he says is, whatever you're doing as a professional, in every sector, there's a need for sort of new ideas and understanding what's going on and convening people. There are all these sort of tasks which aren't directly part of your job, but are actually part of your responsibility. And he says you should always have these ideas on the go and be thinking about them, researching them, trying to move your sector forward. The brilliant thing about that is that if you follow this advice, you will have the best network in your industry. You get there not by networking. You're not thinking about how can I ingratiate myself with important people. You're thinking about how am I fulfilling my duties as a professional and moving forward the field. But the byproduct of that more, which is a mission most people will buy into much more easily. But if you do that, if you follow his advice, you will end up with the world's best network. And by the way, never ever call anything a networking event. Can you imagine busy, serious people thinking, I'm going to attend a networking event? It's the last thing they would ever do.
Most people would rather shoot themselves. And actually, this paper sounds like the professional version of one of my favorite books, which is Keith Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone, which is really just the human version of the same thing, right? Be curious, talk to people, be nice to them, remember them, stay in touch, serve them, and great things will flow. It's so obvious, but we get the tremors when we so much as hear the word networking.
We collect a lot of data. The 3 topics that always lead in feedback are networking, career change, and job hunting. And career change and job hunting are very obvious. And networking is like, why is that there? And I think people understand that they want to do it and they're so constrained and they need to find a sort of formula.
Indeed. And of course, those other 2 topics would flow far more naturally if people did that connecting with people.
Of course.
Right. We're preaching to the choir, so let's stop. Let's switch completely and talk about your opinion on podcasts. You have a fairly strong opinion that not everyone can or should do it. You are a frequent guest, and so you are very well placed to hold a strong opinion. Can you tell us more?
I do actually think that, but I barely remember writing it. And I'm not a frequent guest, actually. I'm a frequent participant. But okay, so here's the thing. So over my career, the cost of content production has been falling precipitously the whole time. So it is now content production and distribution. It is now open to all of us, essentially, to be our own newspaper, TV channel, radio show, yada, yada, yada. And I think the risk is that we're all going to produce a bunch of rubbish because we can. And I think people should have a high bar. And the bar should be is that when you think about producing some content, you should be trying to produce the best thing on the internet. People get into a complete tizzy when I say that because it sounds completely mad. But what I mean is, it forces you to focus on a niche. So I am not interested in the 4,000th review of the next iPhone, and you should not produce anything like that ever. It's highly unlikely that you have anything useful to say. However, I am interested in what you thought about the conference you went to yesterday, because probably nobody wrote about that. And I am interested in things that are about your particular expertise and your particular niche. And especially if you've thought about it or collected data about it, we're all able to produce what I call GPIGs, which is Global Public Information Goods. And you should think about doing that in a way that takes notice of the fact that everyone else is doing it as well. So you have to think about where you can contribute.
That sounds very sensible indeed, and should be good guidance to anybody contemplating the audacity of setting up a podcast.
Or it could just be a snobbish old media guy telling everyone else not to bother.
But I think it is a good guide. And funnily enough, I heard somebody mention just the other day, somebody, and I don't remember who it was, but somebody who's become an enormous podcaster and blogger, I think, who started off with 5 people on her mailing list and yet decided that she would become absolutely committed to creating extraordinary content for those 5 people. And she kept that in mind as she went from 5 to 5,000 to 5 million and beyond. And it's another angle on the same thing. So if you're going to do it well, thinking very hard about what you're offering and its uniqueness.
People need to love niches. Niches are so powerful.
My son has a friend who has a highly popular podcast in Finnish about Finnish history, and he makes a living from it.
There you go. Wow.
So, let's talk about business schools and career development. You obviously interact with large numbers of leading business schools. You deal with people in careers at those schools, both the users and the proposers of services for around careers. How do you think any career advisor at a top school could be doing better these days at helping younger executives towards a happy, valuable, and fulfilling career? What do you see? What would you like to see?
People in careers do a great job mostly and are very underappreciated. So one thing that I observed, probably like you, Claire, is that when I was at INSEAD, there were a lot of opportunities presented to me. There are a lot of glamorous employers around, and that was because the careers team had done an exceptional job and continue to do that. And yet, I don't know if it was completely appreciated. The thing that I would say about business schools and careers is there is this massive, incomprehensible failure to be strategic. And in the particular area of focusing, everyone wants to produce essentially the same product, which is an MBA. And from a careers perspective, it's so much more powerful if you say, this isn't an MBA, this is, for instance, a defense industry MBA. And some schools do that. Cranfield does that. There is a UCL as a global health MBA. And if you think about the ability to attract employers, being the 50th school which offers a general MBA versus being the second school which offers a very focused MBA on the pharmaceutical industry or the media or something.
Yeah.
It's a complete no-brainer. And I presume there's some strong, weird reason why it doesn't happen. But to me, it's mind-boggling And I think it's driven by the accreditation and rating system.
Oh, almost certainly. I mean, this is not the time and place, but I have quite strong opinions on actually how cynical the career departments and the directors of business schools are in terms of turning out products that will sell easily and quickly and push their rankings up in terms of how many graduates are employed by the end of the course, as opposed to offering the widest range of possibilities to all concerned. But I won't go any further down that rabbit hole because I could spend hours there. There's still much to be done. I also wonder on that idea of specialized or niche MBAs, whether it wouldn't be a rather double-edged sword, like it would have all the positive sides that you're referring to of making it very clear as to where the best people are for companies to go and recruit. But does it not, to some extent, rather than limit those who've taken that MBA to sticking in that field, as opposed to being career acrobats and moving with agility across different areas?
You should be able to choose
Yes.
a bit more. It was certainly true for me. Some people I studied with when I did my MBA in, 15 years ago, they did make these incredible, transformative, complete jumps. My flatmate was working in tech in India and become a management consultant in Dubai. It was an impressive thing to do, but it wasn't very unusual. So I don't know if that still happens. Staying where you are, I've stayed everywhere for long periods of time. I'm quite a fan of sticking with something.
Yes.
Clearly, lots of people won't want to be limited and shouldn't be, but I think lots of people perhaps would gladly specialize a bit if they thought it would work out
I
for
think
them
so too,
in
definitely.
career terms.
And, it's a question of choosing path A or path B as you go into that education, I guess. You are somebody who is admittedly someone who's been very unhappy.
So exactly. So
Yeah.
I couldn't possibly have done the thing that I'm advocating because
No,
I didn't.
exactly.
I was so a media MBA. I might have been tempted.
Well, maybe there's a business opportunity for you yet, Neil, to go and set up new kinds of specialized MBAs. Let's go back to the optimistic 18-year-old Neil, who went off into his research career. What advice would you want to give to him if you could speak to him from your life now?
It's very important to experiment, which we talked about. If things aren't working, what certainly happened to me, it's just very easy to suffer. And then eventually you do something. Eventually you always do something because it just becomes so grueling to suffer. I would say that I wish I'd sort of asked for help or tried something different or just actually tried something earlier and not gruelingly suffered.
So we can offer him those words of comfort from the distance that we're at this stage. Neil, I think we're probably coming towards the end of the scope of what we've been talking about. We've dug into all kinds of things quite deeply, and I've very much appreciated that. Tell us what else you're going to be up to in 2025, which we're also already alarmingly far through. But what are your exciting projects for the rest of the year?
I'm in the mood to do some new products. So I'm interested in internships. I think that's somewhere which we spoke about. I think people could be helped to generate those kind of opportunities. And I think that's quite an exciting thing. I'm a big fan of Steve Dalton and his 2-hour job search, always. So I'm always interested in that as an idea. I think older people, being an older person myself, and maybe you have this too, I think older people, careers for people who are 50 and above, that's an interesting area, which I'm sort of looking at. It
certainly is. You must have dealt with Aviva.
Yeah,
well,
exactly. And there are great people looking at this. I keep doing my webinars, which is great, but I'm in the mood to maybe create something else.
Beautiful. Well, we will look forward to seeing it, hearing it, or whatever way we experience it. And I'm very grateful to you for the time and energy you've spent with me today. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Claire. It's been a blast.
We hope you enjoyed hearing from this month's guest as much as we did.
Do go and check out our work on disrupt-your-career.com and come back soon. Thank you.